Did you know that the national debt of the United States currently stands at over $31.45 trillion? That's with a T, a capital T. But what does that actually mean for you and your wallet? The national debt is a term that is often thrown around in politics and the media, but many people don't fully understand what it is or how it affects their daily lives. Don't worry, I'll talk about what the national debt is, how it is created, and how it affects you as a taxpayer. First, let's get into what the national debt is. The national debt is the total amount of money that the federal government owes to its creditors, which includes normal people like you and me, businesses, and even other countries. Currently, as of March 15th, 2023, the national debt of the United States stands a tall $31.45 trillion and continues to grow every year. This is up from the $30.4 trillion of last year. That's a very large number. Speaking of large numbers, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button to get our numbers up. It might seem like a little, but it really does do a lot, and it's always appreciated. Anyway, so how is the national debt created? Basically, the federal government spends more money than it actually collects on taxes, and the difference is known as the budget deficit. Just like any business, in order to finance the deficit, the government borrows money by issuing treasury bonds, notes, and bills. These bonds are sold to investors that would be the businesses, other countries, and ourselves who purchase these bonds, which basically is us essentially lending money to the government with the promise of receiving interest payments and eventually being repaid the principal amount. Now let's get into talking about how the national debt affects you. One of the most obvious ways that the national debt affects you is through interest payments. The more the government borrows, what does that mean? The more it has to pay in interest on its debt. In fact, interest on the national debt is one of the largest items in the federal budget, second only to mandatory spending programs like Social Security and Medicare. Crazy, right? So why should you care about the interest payments on the national debt? I mean, we aren't politicians, right? Well, the more the government has to pay in interest, the less money it has to spend on other programs and services such as education, infrastructure, and defense. And me being in the military, I am all for a high defense budget. Anyway, this can lead to cuts in these programs or increased taxes to make up the difference. This is where it hurts. The increase in taxes, because just like a business that has to pay more for their product that they then sell to consumers and in turn increase their prices, the government does the same just with taxes. As I'm sure you know, another way that the national debt affects you is through inflation. When the government borrows money, it increases the supply of money in the economy. This is not good. In fact, this can actually lead to inflation. This happens when there is too much money in circulation within the economy, lowering the value in comparison to the previous amount of goods and services. Basically, you need more money to buy what you could have bought for less before. Like I said, inflation can have a significant impact on your everyday life because it reduces your purchasing power. Essentially, when there is inflation, the value of money decreases. So you have to spend more money to buy the same things you used to be able to buy for less. This means that your savings, they're basically worthless, becoming worth less and less over time, which can be especially problematic for retirees or people on a fixed income. It doesn't end there. Inflation can also lead to a ripple effect throughout the economy. As the cost of goods and services increases, businesses may have to raise their prices to maintain their profit margins. This can create a vicious cycle where prices continue to rise, leading to even more inflation. This inflation can also be particularly damaging to people who are in debt because the value of their debt decreases over time as the value of money decreases. This can make it harder for people to pay off their debt and can lead to a cycle of debt that is pretty much difficult to break. So while some inflation is necessary for a healthy economy, too much inflation can be detrimental to your financial well-being. And as we've discussed, the national debt can contribute to inflation, which is just one more way that it affects your daily life. Something that can't just be looked away from and ignored is the fact that the national debt can also affect your financial well-being. If the national debt continues to grow unchecked the way it is, it could lead to a financial crisis in the future not what we're dealing with now, but a real disaster, which could have severe consequences for the economy and for you as a taxpayer. A financial crisis could lead to higher interest rates, higher taxes, and decreased economic growth, which could all have negative effects on your finances. So, what can you do to help address the national debt and its effects on your wallet? It requires paying attention and work. One thing you can do is to stay informed about government spending and make your voice heard by contacting your elected officials. You can also support policies that promote fiscal responsibility, such as reducing government waste and increasing efficiency in government programs. Why? Because politicians are spending your money, not theirs. My point is, the national debt is a complex issue that affects all of us as taxpayers. It impacts our ability to fund important programs and services, leads to inflation and decreased purchasing power, and could have long-term consequences for our financial well-being. By staying informed and advocating for responsible government spending, we can all work together towards a better future for ourselves and future generations. As always, thank you for watching. Check out my last video here. It's free for you, but can help me out in putting more content out. Thank you and see you in the next video.